All right, good afternoon. It is 2:35. Wow, look at us on time. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good job. We are here to have benefits and services. So good afternoon, everyone. Hope you've had some coffee and have lots of energy. Looking forward to our conversation this afternoon. So let's see, and Taylor. Hi, Taylor. I don't think I've met you before.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Sharon. Nice to meet you. Taylor, can you go ahead and take the roll for us?
Yes, thank you. For the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Garfinkel. Here. Mr. Tang.
Here.
Ms. Bradford.
Here.
All right. Vice Chair, Ms. Yamamoto.
Here.
All right. Director, for the State Treasurer, Mr. Rufino.
Present.
All right. And for the Director of Finance, Ms. Burrell.
Here.
Ms. Hendricks, you have a quorum.
Great. And I think you have something to read for us, Taylor?
I do, thank you.
Great, thank you.
The CalSTRS board meetings are live web streamed, video archived, and available to the public on calstrs.com. Individuals who wish to address the board should wait for the 10-minute public comment period at the end of the agenda item the speaker wishes to address. For comments not pertaining to a specific agenda item, there will be an opportunity for additional statements at the end of the open session. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to comment. However, if there is not enough time for each speaker to have 3 minutes, the timing will be at the discretion of the chair. To protect the privacy of speakers under the age of 18 who wish to address the board, only their first name and affiliated organization may be provided, but other personal identifying information, such as their last name, age, or school, may not be shared. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Taylor. Our first item is approval of the committee agenda. And moved
Second.
and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, I don't have to do roll call, right, Brian? Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. All right, we have our agenda. Item number 2 is on consent, approval of the minutes. Karen, do you need to pull it for any reason?
No.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right, our minutes are approved. Thank you. Our next item is Jeff Zimmer, the radio voice I love to hear. Jeff is going to talk about quality management and account review approaches in employer services. And Bill, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Bill Perez, Chief Benefits Officer, and this afternoon we have a couple of items, starting with one from Employer Services. And we're going to be looking at a couple of innovation efforts that started a year ago with an effort that preceded Assembly Bill 1667. It was employer reporting the final benefit. And there were multiple pilots from which we looked at the potential to leverage improvements within different business areas. 2 of those, actually more than 2, but 2 in particular were for Employer Services, and Jeff is here to present on behalf of Employer Services. Jeff.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time this afternoon. And I am Jeff Zimmer. I have the privilege of supporting the teams in Employer Services as third director. And like Bill said, I'll update you today on some developments around quality management and account review in Employer Services. This is the Employer Services mission, and I start with it because it explains what we do, who we do it with, and why we do it. And while our primary customer is the employer, we ultimately are serving the members by ensuring we have accurate contribution reporting that turns into accurate benefits. And so that's how we attach to the CalSTRS mission of securing the financial future and sustaining the trust of California's educators. And there are, hidden in plain sight, 3 themes to our mission: service, education, and accuracy. And we use those themes to prioritize what we do, where we spend our efforts, and how we choose things that we want to do. And we often say, if it doesn't move one of those 3 things, maybe it's not something that we need to do. But the 2 things I'm going to talk about today absolutely impact all 3 of those strategic themes. So as Bill mentioned, a little bit of history here. We've been working on approaches to quality for a long time. It's a long-standing culture and expectation of innovation at CalSTRS. This is something that comes from Cassandra, it comes from Bill, it comes from Lisa. This is an expectation for us, and it's highly motivating because we're always looking to make changes and make things better. And Bill mentioned the employer reporting to final benefit project. That was something that had involvement across the organization And like Bill said, the most visible outcome of that was Assembly Bill 1667, that we collaborated with the sponsors of that bill to make changes to a number of things, but also, most importantly, to the responsibility for overpayments when a member is overpaid and how we collect that back and who we collect it from, to avoid the possibility of a member being responsible for an overpayment that wasn't a result of his or her action. But we knew under the surface, there are a lot of things that we could do that we could improve to get to the root cause and prevent some of those benefit adjustments from happening in the first place. 1667 was a lot about, oh, it's already happened, but how do we make sure it doesn't happen? And we'll never avoid benefit adjustments. They are inevitable. However, we can reduce the risk of them happening. And that's what these two efforts are about. Things that are in our control that we could potentially improve and make better to reduce that possibility. It became an initiative on the strategic plan around the accuracy of member data. And then when we move from strategic to tactical is what I'll specifically talk about today, is the formalization and expansion of two teams in employer services around quality and risk management and our compensation review unit. So the quality and risk management team has a vision, and the most important things are quality, compliance, and risk. And what we decided to do is sample those interactions that we have with employers to make sure it meets our standard for quality, mainly around accuracy and education. Are we providing the right information through all these interactions that we have with employers? Let's make sure we can measure it, and let's make sure that we're adhering to our own expectations and standards for quality. Give you a little bit of background about that volume. So we've started kind of on our employer help area that has the most interaction with employers. And this is a little bit of the workload that we have. So this is from June. It's a somewhat capricious time period, but I just asked, hey, since summer, how much work have we gotten from this employer workload? 1,500 phone calls, 700 messages that came through our secure employer website. So we'll get messages through that site. Oftentimes there might be a form with PII attached, so they submit it securely through that website. But our largest volume is the email. And we have an employer help mailbox, and they submit questions and things and inquiries to us. And you can see 3,000 since June. This is our largest point of contact with the employer. A lot of interactions there. So this is where we wanted to start for quality control. Hey, let's develop a method to look at those emails that we sent out as a response to one of the employer inquiries and make sure it has accurate information in it, and it has a tone of professionalism, and then it has education and service baked into that response. So in the time that we've been measuring this is fiscal year to date. Like I said, we've been thinking about this for a while. We've piloted it for a while, but in July, we were given the formal positions to staff this team, a leader and analysts to drive this work. And that was because of the work from the employer reporting to final benefit project. And we had a budget contract request that was approved by the board to invest in this effort. As you can see, fiscal year to date, our quality score is 91%, and we measure across 5 perspectives. You can see accuracy, service, education, tone, and one more that I'll talk about. So we want to make sure, hey, let's sample these, and we've done 472 since the beginning of the fiscal year, which is good. And that was before the team was fully established. So I have an idea that we can sample more of these and have a higher sample rate. I think this is about 20%, which is good, but we can do better, and we can do more. So the scores are good. Was it accurate information? Did we provide education around the answer, not just given an answer without providing some context around it? Did it have the right tone, and did it have an aspect of service to it? So those scores you can see there.
Jeff, is this including emails and calls, or is it just emails?
This is just emails.
Okay.
Phone calls coming soon.
Okay.
So you'll hear a little bit from Bill a little bit later on about evolutions in our contact center telephony technology that will allow us to sample some of those as well.
Okay.
So like a traditional contact center would do. So we're getting there. But because emails were our largest volume and will continue to be, this is where we wanted to start the effort. And it will continue to be our largest sample volume. The one thing, so we have had a challenge. Those scores were all very good. As educators, you know, not everyone is born with the MLA style manual. And even if
everyone's Karen Yamamoto.
Exactly.
Let's just be real.
Good point. But even with we're introducing the CalSTRS style guide. So another level and another expectation of style. So these are criteria that are relatively new to people. Now their emails are being looked at to say, hey, did we match the CalSTRS style guide? So in the prioritization of things, we want to be accurate and we want to provide good education, but we also want the emails to be, and our inquiry responses to be professional and have the right style for CalSTRS, because often the employers don't think that they're interacting with employer services, they're interacting with CalSTRS. So we want to have that same standard of style that we would provide to any other constituent that we talk to. But I'll back up here. Talking about AB 1667, I did some outreach with some of the stakeholder groups that worked with us on that legislation that we supported when they sponsored the legislation. And one of our member advocacy groups, I spoke with a representative from our member advocacy group, and he said, is that a good score? And I said, I'll tell you what's good is that we can even talk about a score. That we've gotten to this point where we've evolved our processes where I can actually tell you how many emails we've sampled, how accurate they are, what the education is like, and that we have standards for these interactions. For the record, it's a good score. Our benchmark is 85 and we're already beating it, so that's good. So it is a good score, but I thought that was an interesting conversation that we had. So see, some of these are the benefits are, as you can imagine, we have the quality interactions and we have an opportunity for feedback and coaching. If we find an interaction that wasn't up to our standard, we talk about it. And then that can go into a coaching session with that particular team member. And we increased our interventions. Now we're looking at more. Anecdotally, we thought we were providing good service and accurate information, but now we're getting closer to objectively tell everyone that we are, because we're sampling more and looking at it more often. And the big thing is the gaps are opportunities for training materials. So if we see a theme where some of our team members are struggling with a certain concept, a complex topic, we can have internal training about that. Let's have a refresher about that. But if we see a theme of a question that's coming up constantly from the employers, we can also direct that to our training and development team and say, hey, we're getting a lot of this question. Maybe we should have some supplemental examples in our training or a separate training module about this topic. So we just know more about these interactions to have some of this content get back into the training flow, whether it be internal or external. So the second area that we've buttressed recently is our compensation review unit. Now, compensation review is a function that is across employer services as a business area. Our audits resolution team is working with districts to make sure that they comply with an audit finding and report compensation correctly. We have teams in employer reporting validation that are reaching out if a compensation item exceeds a threshold in our system, then we start asking questions about that. So compensation review is a discipline. However, we do have a team dedicated to it. Historically, the team has looked at benefits after retirement, after they've established. And they look at, high final compensation or high special compensation just to make sure that we understand that it was accurate. And we ask the district for contracts, we follow up. So it was largely a risk mitigation approach after retirement. And the team reviews hundreds of benefits a year. What we did was, again, add formal capacity to the team with a manager and some staff. And we've doubled the capacity, almost like 98%. The capacity, and they are now looking at the entire team, this entire team. It's not half and half. Everyone is all dedicated to the post-retirement, which we'll continue to look at because it's best practice for risk mitigation. But now we're looking prior to retirement. So this is something that's brand new for CalSTRS, and we've been trying to develop it for a while. Again, we piloted it last year, but it's become formal now. We've heard it from our member groups, our employer groups, even from the board. Hey, have you considered? Yes, we have. And this is the manifestation of all those conversations. So the methodology is important. Like I said, the reasonable population side and the certainty of upcoming retirement is important because we have 450,000 active members. We cannot look at every account. We have 12 to 13,000 retirees for service every year. We can't look at all of those. However, what we can do is knock on the door of our friends in service retirement and say, can we have some of your applications for people to retire in the next 6 months? So that gives us a population that we're fairly certain is going to retire because they have an application on file. So then we sample those and we take a look at them and say, all right, let's pull from those and let's look at their accounts before they retire. So the goal for the compensation review unit in this expansion of what they do is just let's test the approaches and develop the methodology. And we've really only started doing this work since January. That's when the team was fully hired and we had enough time to think about how are we going to do this? Because it's a little bit daunting. This is a lot of information and a lot of data. How do we get it so it's meaningful and we can actually see some benefit from this? So by using that idea of looking at applications that are on file in a certain retirement, we've reviewed 68 as of January. And of those 68, we found about 5 that we wanted to reach out to the district and say, this doesn't quite line up. The final compensation that's on this member's account doesn't match with the salary schedule that's in your district for that particular position. So we'll reach out and ask questions about that. It may be fine, but we've already noticed certain situations where asking for more information is helpful because we'll know more about what that benefit should be prior to the member actually receiving it. So, and we also noticed some interesting things because we never really looked at this before that we just happened, like I said, we grabbed a handful of applications kind of metaphorically. We grabbed the applications and some of them were for members that had just not been vested or they had been vested, but they've been inactive for a while. So their final compensation year was like 15 years ago. So that was interesting. We're just learning more things as we do this. But again, the intent is always how do we get ahead of the benefit to make sure we can do more to ensure that the account is accurate prior to retirement. So then what are we doing next? So we're updating our quality scoring criteria. Again, as we sample more and understand more about what our standards are, we want to make sure our criteria matches our expectations. We're looking at more things to quality control. So right now, like I said, we're looking at emails mostly because that's our highest volume interaction and it's kind of the easiest to work with. We have other areas that interact with the employers. So what else could we sample that we want to look at and make sure we have standards for? And then, of course, refining and learning from that initial account review methodology. That'll take some time as we get smarter about it and do it more of it. We'll realize that there's efficiencies that we'll find. And then finally, to listen to our teams and to find ways to continue our evolution. I had another conversation with one of our retired member advocates about this, giving her an update on this. And I appreciated what she said because she made the connection of this work to the integrity of the data was the word that she used, integrity. And I thought that was a very good way to put it. And largely both of these efforts, I would say, are investments in that integrity. What can we do to make sure that we're doing everything we can prior to benefit, providing accurate information to the employer so they report things accurately, that they understand how to report it, and then doing what we can from data analytics to make sure that we can look at member accounts before they retire. So those are our 2 main goals with these efforts. And that's what we've done this fiscal year with the formal establishment of both of those teams and the expansion of the compensation review unit.
Interesting, Jeff.
I'll be happy to take any
That's
questions.
so fascinating. I have some questions, but I'll defer to committee members first. Any questions from committee members? Okay, you're welcome. So I have a couple questions.
Sure.
How do you assess tone in an email? Do you
That's
have like you know how like I remember taking English class and there was like a
Right.
style guide? And so you're talking about the CalSTRS style guide, right? So so does the style guide have a tone for
Style
email?
guide, not necessarily, but tone at its simplest is, think of it just professional correspondence. Dear Ms. Hendricks, thank you for your inquiry. And it's not
Hey,
just
Sharon,
like,
what's up?
what's up?
What's up, girl?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
A certain amount of formality and professionalism. So that, I mean, it's subjective. You're right. I mean, there isn't, we can't put it into a box and it'll come out on the other side and say, this had good tone or bad tone.
Yeah.
Did it have a formal opening? Did it answer the question? Did it use appropriate language and professional conversation, and then close appropriately and provide a link to the employer satisfaction survey, which we're also doing. We're doing point of service surveys for these interactions as well to get feedback immediately about the employer's interaction with us. So it's just making sure it has the right professionalism to it.
Thanks. And then Jed, is there a way, I'm assuming we probably do this, but like with audits and when we see employers that are having issues with how they're reporting, you know, creditable comp, can we use that as a flag? Or we're doing that, right? We use that as a flag.
Absolutely.
engage
Absolutely.
with those employers on some of these?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're talking about specifically about the audit resolution process, when we get findings from an audit, we reach out to that district immediately and provide education about, hey, this was incorrect and here's how it should have been and this is how you should be doing it. Please give us any members that were impacted. We have a whole process around that. But of course, the same way if we see themes from those audits, those go into our training development as well. So that's a good point. Another way of looking at these efforts around quality management and account review, it's another way to open up our eyes around what the themes potentially are. We have more ways of understanding what the interactions, what the context of the questions are coming from employers and the landscape of problems they may be having that we learn about from audits that all go into our training materials about what do we need to reach out about? What can we reinforce? So these are all ways to grab that information to, again, strengthen our training and our outreach.
Are you planning on, at some point, I would love, as the Benefits and Services Committee, to hear a little more about what those themes are from the employer's perspective, because I certainly hear about it from the employee perspective.
Right.
In my different hats. I think a lot of us do.
Right.
But it would be interesting to hear what some of the themes are. I mean, I already
Sure.
kind of know some of them,
You
know,
likely
like
do.
a faculty takes, the chancellor says, hey, Sharon, we'd love for you to work on this project. And I don't realize that,
Right.
The job code doesn't fit with creditable comp regs or whatever.
Exactly. Yes, we track all of those findings, and the audits resolution team actually categorize all of them with pie charts that shows, what's the slice about DB and DBS and 2% is 60, 2% is 62. What I didn't talk about today is the potential of AB 1997, our creditable compensation simplification proposal that's in the legislature now. And that would be interesting because we'll give you the environment now, what the common things are. I expect that to change dramatically if that legislation were to be signed, because then some of the categories will disappear just by the benefit of the legislation. So we could tell you what we see now and what the themes are, and audit services tracks this too.
Yeah.
But we go down a level more and really go to the finding level and categorize what we're seeing when we look at an audit and what the findings are. So yes, we have that data, and we do use it, again, to seed training both internal and external.
It feels like it always goes back to that, what can we control at CalSTRS? So all we can control is what your team is trying to do.
Right.
We can't control, the HR folks that are interacting with payroll and doing the job coding and all that. So, great. Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Appreciate the work, Jeff, and thank you to the rest of your team.
Absolutely.
I think we have a public comment, so Jennifer Baker, go ahead, Jen.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Baker with the California Retired Teachers Association. I really wanted to commend you and commend your team for working on this. This work is absolutely incredible. And I think what's really important to know is that the lessons that we all learned after accomplishing what we did in AB 1667 really is being taken to another level. And the fact that you're working so succinctly internally to build trust, to build accountability, and also, as Jeff noted, to build integrity, it really creates a level of peace, of knowing that that we're able to trust the work that you're doing, that you're working to ensure that integrity of data. So really wanted to make it a point to say thank you for doing this kind of systemic work to take us into the future, because it allows us all, it's the T in the CalSTRS, the trust, and it's just so important to the mission. We just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it, Jeff. Bill, are you up next? I love saying this word, evolving telephony technology within benefits and services, right? Did I say that right? Okay.
You said it perfectly.
Yes, telephony. Got to get the stress on the right syllable. So this is an information item. So go ahead, Bill.
Members of the board, Madam Chair, Bill Perez, Chief Benefits Officer. This afternoon I'll be presenting on behalf of Shani Kaiser-Bose, the Director of Customer Service Division. And this segment is really touching on a successful completion of a project. We first brought it up in May of 23 when we gave an overview of the contact center telephony modernization project. And then at the March board meeting, Cassandra, in the CEO update, did provide that the project came in on time, under budget, and was successfully implemented in under 6 months, which was, for this kind of a lift, a pretty successful endeavor on all parts. So today I'll share a few points of where we came from and what opportunities we have for the future in looking at our evolving ways to engage with our members. And you touched on telephony, so we're starting with just a quick overview of the term. And really, it's an evolution from traditional phone systems. When I was looking a little bit at what the transition or evolution was of standard telephone communications connecting two individuals, there's a reference or an acronym of traditional telephone lines. It's called POTS, and it stands for plain old telephone system. So we've come a long way from the traditional methodology to what we have now, which allows us to incorporate not only voice, but data, fax, video, and conferencing. And to that end, we were looking at how we could leverage the technology we were already using in an environment where, especially over the past several years, we've seen a pretty high level of adoption from our members of alternative ways of connecting with them. And Zoom is definitely one of those things that evolved over the past couple of years, particularly with the advent of COVID. So we were also at a point where we had a telephone system that was already using soft phone. However, it was an on-premise platform, meaning we were using physical hardware and switch. And the system itself, the application, was not only coming to end of contract, but also end of life. So we either needed to make a decision to transition to a new platform or look at what other opportunities were out there for us to be able to move forward. In a period of about 18 months, we started doing some research that involved visioning, demos, actually also collaborating with some of our business partners in the state that had made platform transitions as well. And in June of 2023, we initiated the planning, design, and building of what was to become the new platform. Between mid-October through November, we started testing and training. And then we, in conjunction with our partners in technology services, we went through a complete implementation in essentially under 6 months, which I have gone through other implementations, some of which have taken as long as 2 years at other organizations. So I'd say we did a pretty great job in overall collaboration in reaching go live. Although we've already adopted the new platform, we're looking at a second phase. So right now we've just completed a statement of work for phase 2. And among the initial enhancements that we had was looking at our interactive voice response, our phone tree basically, and going through a complete upgrade of that. We had not updated our phone tree in about 15 years. And so one of the things we wanted to accomplish was to be able to reduce the amount of time that it took for someone to navigate the menus and get to an actual customer service representative. We succeeded initially in a reduction of over 40% in the amount of time to actually get to the right area and hopefully the correct area. So a lot of the effort was also in looking at the terminology that we used and avoiding any jargon that might be confusing.
Bill, can I just ask you to that point?
Sure.
So the phone tree, when you talk about a phone tree, that's like when you call and they say, press 1 for,
Correct.
I don't know,
Press 1
retirement
for this,
readiness.
2 for that.
Okay, that's
Yes.
what a phone tree is.
Yes,
And it directs
and
you.
currently we're at the press 1, press 2, The statement of work
Multiple-
for phase two, which I'll share in a moment, is actually going to take us to a next level. But
Got it.
the efforts for our initial phone tree upgrade was to try to reduce the amount of time and clarify to get individuals to the right place with the first call and minimize transfers and reduce member effort. Aside from that, we were already using soft phone with our prior vendor, but there were multiple enhancements that were made available with the new soft phone, one of which was single sign-on. And so our customer service representatives, depending upon what they're working on, might need to access 9 different applications, each one requiring a separate sign-on. With the use of single sign-on in conjunction with NICE CX1, they're able to log in once, and then they have access to a hub, that's the Universal Access Hub, to which they can click and change on a single pane of glass between different applications. So saving time in terms of being able to access the right information. And then another enhancement that was provided to us with this platform was the ability to have better reporting in terms of dashboards, live updates of information, and also on-the-fly reports that could be generated by leaders as needed. Furthermore, we also, in the overall scope of the contract, which we use CalNet for securing the NICE CX1 contract, we have the services of a administrative technology expert from NICE whenever we do have an issue, so we have quick access to their team. The opportunities for us moving forward are going to involve a number of different elements. Right now we have performance management, which is in effect looking at the metrics that are behind all of the work that we do with our customer service division. Probably, I'd say it's one of the areas that has the most metrics in quantifying how well of a job that we do, including service level, average wait time, abandonment, amongst the many KPIs that we have. Feedback Manager is actually looking at being able to provide diagnostics in terms of the information that we're receiving from our members, and that looks at survey results that we're receiving. Right now, we have after-call surveys that are available for our customer service division. Moving into our second phase, which we're going to be embarking on, we're going to be adding that to 2 additional divisions, and I'll cover that in the next slide. But one of those is going to be employer services, and the other will be our pension 2 team as well. Interaction analytics allows for a number of functions, one of which is going to be the ability to pull from any actual comments that are left. So right now we have a 5-question survey format to try to increase the percentage of individuals that opt to take the survey. The more concise it is, the more likely that we're going to be able to get a high number of responses. There is an option to leave a verbatim comment, and interaction analytics will pull information from that and find commonalities and provide reporting on it, also picking out keywords. So we're looking forward to using that for after-call surveys. Also the opportunity to leverage that to look at where common themes like phrases or words are in terms of conversations that we have with our members as well. So I think the evolution of how the software helps us is still in its nascent stages, and we're exploring how we can better work with that. For the next phase, I mentioned right now, in terms of going through the phone tree, our members are choosing options, option 1, 2, 3. In phase 2, we're going to incorporate automatic speech recognition into the IVR. So someone will either be able to say or press a number, and you've probably called some organizations where they say either say or press. say this or press 2. And we're going to be incorporating that in an effort really to streamline the process, get them to the right individual. And one of the things that we've incorporated, currently have the ability to do, but will be rolling out, is skills-based routing. So although that technology did exist previously with the former vendor, we were not actually utilizing it. We will be transitioning over to skills-based routing in the future. The goal of that, again, getting an individual over to the right person the first time around, and looking at having opportunities to route more complex types of calls to someone that already has a significant amount of experience, as opposed to potentially someone that just became part of the customer service division and maybe has only been talking with members for 3 or 4 months. One of the things that we're going to leverage that for is a potentially learn and apply method, where instead of spending 7.5 weeks in training to learn everything all at once, we look at a progressive mechanism whereby the more straightforward types of inquiries are handled by individuals that are newer to the contact center, increases the likelihood that individuals have the right information when they reach someone the first time. So that's another opportunity that we're looking at using, which isn't on here, but skills-based routing is something that we're going to be deploying in the future. Feedback management surveys. I think I mentioned to you, we're going to have the ability to pull data from text analytics and hopefully help us. One of the challenges sometimes when you incorporate actual comments, particularly if you have a high percentage of calls that get surveyed, is then you have to act on that data. And so it does create the need to be able to have the bandwidth sort of to address and read all of the individual comments. The analytics will help us with sort of parsing that into sort of buckets, if you will. And then for the after-call survey, right now the only business area that is using the after-call survey within NICE is customer service, but we're going to be rolling it out also to employer services, pension 2, as well as the scheduling line for individual retirement planning sessions. And with that, I will take any questions you might have.
Interesting.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I have
I
some
know, it
questions,
is.
but I will defer
Yeah.
to the Vice Chair. Karen, go
Okay,
ahead.
hi, thanks. That's a lot of information, and I guess pretty soon we'll have to figure out how to really say that, have to spell it out phonetically and everything. But there is, you know, when you talked about the phone tree and how many buttons you have to push before you get to whatever you can get, there is a person at the end of the phone tree, right? There is a real person.
There is always, as they say, a live person, and I don't know what the alternative to that would be, but
Right.
there's always a live person at the end of that journey. There are organizations, and we've probably all encountered them at one point or another, that you try to figure out
Yeah,
how
you never
you can
get it.
actually get to someone, and the intent is to try to contain individuals within the system to get the information themselves. While we see the value of self-provisioning, our goal has never been, nor will it be, deflection. We want every opportunity to connect with our members. I mean, quite the opposite. I would say our Director of Retirement Readiness would say that they want every opportunity to connect with members. And so we don't look to deflect, we look to streamline and ideally lower the amount of effort. If you have to navigate through a lot of hoops to get to someone to speak to, that's a high effort experience. If you end up getting transferred multiple times, high effort experience.
Frictionless.
Frictionless.
That's the term.
So
Frictionless
if we're successful, we get a member to the right individual the first time around
First time.
in the least amount of time.
Okay, good. Good to know. Thank you.
That's great, Karen, thanks. Sure, go ahead and put your, go ahead.
So if they push 0, will they get a person?
If they push 0, they will not get a person.
Or if they just say, what's the word?
Are you the person that
Operator.
screams on the phone and says,
Yes, I
"Operator,
am.
speak to a live
Operator
person"?
or
Yeah.
I've done that a few
representative?
times.
So,
I've
so
done it.
representative won't work, because that would have been a spoiler.
Will any of those work?
No, and here's the
That's not good.
here's the thing. So right now, as I mentioned, we have reduced our length of time to get to an individual by about 40%. Our goal with skills-based routing is to ensure that if someone is calling about, let's say, if a beneficiary is calling about a survivor benefit issue, and they get someone that's been with the customer service division for 3 months, the level of knowledge required to answer perhaps some of those questions is not going to be where it needs to be. So ideally, without overcomplicating our phone tree, we want to provide enough choices to be ensure that when someone gets to a customer service representative, they've reached someone that won't have to transfer them or put them on hold multiple times. And if you've ever reached out to an organization and they've put you on hold, by the second or third time they put you on hold, you probably figure out that they don't have all the information they need, and you start doubting the accuracy of the information.
Exactly.
So when we looked at our old 15-year phone tree, one of the options was other. And unfortunately, when we look at analytics then to see what's comprising our call volume, but you see a big percentage of that bucket is other, it doesn't tell you anything about how you can address the nature of the reason behind the calls. So ideally, we want to minimize the time to get to someone, but allow for us to get them to the right person to begin with.
Sounds like I have to make a phone
You gotta
call.
always you gotta do that every time because the mic has to. Go ahead, Karen. Karen?
Okay. So if a caller is put on hold for any length of time, is it a blank? Is there elevator music, basically? Is there some kind of acknowledgement that you're not cut off and somebody is gonna come back to you eventually?
I believe on our hold, Brian Russell is in the audience.
Okay.
Wow.
Brian is our senior workforce
You would not hear
manager.
me say that, but that's great to hear. You need to call Karen and find
Okay,
out.
I will
Be
call.
a-
I
be
will
a,
call.
Be our,
I'll
Call
have to
next
have a
week.
specific problem, though.
do an experiment for us.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
That's great.
Of course.
Bill, I don't see other committee members, but I was curious if you could talk a little more about, like, I don't interact with telephone. I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't really do phones. My mom loves to call. I typically, I like texting, and so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how we're thinking about this kind of communication, quick information being helpful to our members when they have questions, different modalities of doing that in the future, how pension solution could helpful. Is it helpful? Is that part of the plan? Could you just talk a little
Sure.
bit about that? Because
Yeah,
I'm
so-
imagining for some of our members, telephone is it, and then as we're all aging now, and I'm like, oh, I'd rather text with somebody at CalSTRS.
So, I mean, as we move forward, we're looking at a number of other modalities. One of which is actually a nearly year-long effort that we've had with a vendor in exploring what we'll probably be utilizing for our customer experience journey. So, we're in the nascent stages of developing a formal framework, and then carry steps forward to mature that. And part of that will require us to look at a client relationship management software, if you will. So one of the things that's happening behind the scenes right now is a review of several options for a CRM. And it aligns with something else that's happening right now, which is we have a sort of a compilation of information that's used primarily by customer service division, but it is used by other business areas as well, retirement readiness, for instance, which is it's a member assistance guide that is a knowledge base and has a search engine capability. The contract and the vendor itself is at end of life. We're going to be actually moving that off for the time being, but we're exploring options that we can leverage that not just for our internal staff, but also to be able to leverage that with our members as well that want to get information on their own and have different means to access it.
Mm-hmm.
We're also exploring chat,
Yeah.
text. We're right now actually having conversations about the mobile optimized web experience and opportunities that we're seeing there. Again, this is a very early stages in customer experience journey, so I don't want to speak too much on that yet. That's actually in the work plan, a presentation for the next fiscal year. But we are looking at other mechanisms for, as our membership base evolves and the styles with which we communicate with our members change, we're looking to potentially explore chat, text, and a knowledge base that not just serves our internal staff, but can also be leveraged by our members as well.
Great.
Oh, and there's also an AI component to trying to create the best responses as opposed to too many responses. Our knowledge base that we've had up until now, unfortunately, had a tendency to maybe provide too many things. And it was overwhelming to someone that's speaking on the phone to someone, or even worse, at a front counter at a member service center and needs a quick answer to something if they have a member present.
Got it. Ashish, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Ashish Jain, Chief Technology Officer. Bill and I are working on, total experience overall. I think the technology, what we put together in the behind the scene, the plumbing is there. Now we have to just see what we can turn on quickly. In my CalSTRS and pension solution, we're also looking about, how the text messaging and all. So,
Right.
yeah.
I'm doing more, we're trying to do more trainings with like our new faculty and younger faculty. And I just notice, and even for myself, the chat function sometimes can be frustrating in different companies because it's it's automated. I'm sure they're using AI, but it just, you have a very specific question and they ignore your question and then give you 10 options for something else. And it's just kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
And so then I don't use chat for those companies. And so, but I certainly see the potential with AI to be able to do chat and have it be very, precise to capture exactly what you're asking and then being able to connect you with the right information.
Yeah.
So getting there would be great.
There's technology, that we're looking at demos of different products that can actually listen in on the conversation and based upon what it's hearing, provide information, not solicited information, pop-up information to the representative that it deems might be helpful in the conversation.
Yeah.
But we are taking a very thoughtful approach, actually, the legal ramification and all. So there are a lot of things we have to think about that one, how we can put our arm around, because that's it really is. I think that's why it's taking a little bit more.
Well, that makes sense. And then just getting back to what Jeff was mentioning earlier about like tone and accuracy, obviously, to me is always like, that's number one, is making sure, when we're using different things, that making sure we're giving customers our members the right information. So exciting. Well, this will be interesting to keep following. Thanks, Bill, to you and your team for the work on this. So
thank you.
And I believe we have public comment. So yeah, Leonard.
Thank you, Sharon. I like to think that we're all in the education business, so I direct this to you, Mr. Perez. As much as I enjoy the CalSTRS hold music, and I'm sure everyone enjoys the upbeat jazziness of it, I like it when we can share factoid information about CalSTRS. Did you know that we've been we have been providing pension services to educators for blank number of years, or some type of, informational thing that
nice
keeps
music in the
them,
background.
instead of just putting the phone on speaker and walking away, they're hearing good things about this amazing organization and the services it's provided, as well as educating them about the system. Also has a calming effect for those folks that have never had the opportunity to come in person to one of our service centers, that they're hearing information that is soothing to them and reassuring, rather than da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
Why don't we have just David Lamoureux say, your pension is secure. The funding plan is working.
On track.
We're on track.
I'm
24,
rather surprised we don't have sound bites to that already available. Thank you very much.
We could do a Hamilton thing too. We could rap, David. You could do a rap in Quebecois or something. And,
That's a very good recommendation. I'll take that back to the team.
I like that.
I like
You could
that.
still have music, soothing music in the background, but I think that's a great idea, Leonard. Thank you for that. Great. Okay, we are on to the committee work plan for this next year. So anything you want to draw our attention to, Bill? I know we chatted briefly about this.
We have a good number of items that we're going to be presenting in September. We're going to be providing an overview of many of the initiatives, some of them that have already been highlighted and some of them that have been going on behind the scenes. But it'll be an overview of benefits and services initiative successes. We'll also have an item that we originally were planning on presenting in May, but we decided to push in the interest of having a more balanced approach, and it's on the defined contribution program growth and expansion plans. So it'll be an opportunity for our Director of Retirement Readiness to sort of highlight her vision of growth for the next 5 years for that business area. In January, we'll be looking at customer experience maturity assessment. So by then, we'll have about 9 months under our belt with our vendor for helping us establish that framework, which is Accenture, and would be able to report out progress at that point in time. And then we'll actually be looking, hopefully, at the passage in the latter part of this year of Assembly Bill 1997, and we felt it was probably best to await what we are optimistically hoping will be a passage of that bill and provide the changes and benefits that are forthcoming from it. And then finally, in May, we'll have our favorite voice within benefits and services presenting on new approaches to quality, and that'll be above and beyond what you heard today.
Great, Bill, thank you. Any comments, any other input you want to see on the work plan, committee members? With that, great, thank you, Bill. Let's see, draft agenda for the next meeting, which will be in September. I don't see any, that's an information item.
Yeah, this would be the annual member insights,
Love that.
the initiative successes within benefits and services, and then the defined contribution program growth and expansion strategy.
So that's like pension two and?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because that was one of my questions, is we've talked at different points about pension two and how to elevate that for the retirement security for our members and make sure they understand it, they know how to sign up for it. I will say we just did a LA Community College District training with our incredible CalSTRS staff. And we had, I think, over 200 people on the call, and there were quite a few people asking about that. And so our team was able to give them information about pension too. So just in that one training, it was for all the community college folks in the CFT. And so I just thought, gosh, if we did more of this, whether that's in all of our different organizations, I think it's just a matter of people they just think, oh, I have a pension, it's fine. And I'm like, well, especially if you're an adjunct and you have different situations, making sure they're aware of pension too, I think is really critical. So I'm glad we're gonna have Kate talk about that, and Tom, our researcher, giving us our annual member insights. So that's great. That'll be a good meeting in September. I don't see any other, great, so let's see. And then on consent agenda, we have the key performance indicators. Is that just for us to look over, Bill? Just for information? There's KPI info.
And you'll see there's an overview of how we've done thus far,
Pretty much everything's in the green. A
Yeah,
couple of yellow items, nothing in red. So we're
That's
making good
good.
progress.
red is not good in this case. Okay, great, okay. And then I didn't see any information items. Is that right? Okay. Opportunities for statements from the public. Does anyone have anything else to say about benefits and services? I don't see any.
We have no members of the public in the queue.
Okay. I think with that, we don't have any information items. I didn't see any additional information items. I'm looking behind you, Bill, so, okay. Great, well, I think with that,
Do we have to go over the charter at all?
it's a consent item. Do you want to pull it?
No, no,
That's
no,
a
I was
consent,
just-
so when
yeah.
it's consent, if you want to pull it, otherwise we don't go over it. Does that make sense? All right, so, all right, with that, I think we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I think we are officially done with the CalSTRS board meetings this week. We do have a stakeholder meeting tomorrow morning for stakeholders at 9 a.m. that Madam Vice Chair and I will be chairing. So we'll see the stakeholders that come to that meeting tomorrow morning at 9. Everyone else, rest well and see you next time.